These are one of my favorite things to do. So in this episode, you are going to hear me coach someone in my community. So this is for you if you listen to this podcast, you follow accounts on Instagram of food freedom and intuitive eating, and you know that you need to heal your relationship with food. You want to have a healthy relationship with food, but you're really scared. You're really scared of letting go of dieting and the control and the food rules and stepping into the unknown. And I get it. I was where you were just a couple of years ago. And I want to share with you some mindset shifts, some strategies, and ask some really powerful questions. And my favorite way to do that is to actually have a member of my community come on who is feeling all of this and get to talk through it and coach you through it. I haven't done an episode like this in a while. My favorite and much loved coaching over coffee episodes. So if you do love hearing the way that I coach and the way that I work through people's blind spots and get them unstuck, then you're going to love this episode. So as you're listening to this episode, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of Jackie, who I'm talking to in this episode. And I want you to think about, how does this affect me? How does this relate to me? How can this be valuable for me? So let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Welcome back, my friend. So before we get into today's recording of my coaching over coffee session with Jackie, I'm going to give you some context, some background of why I wanted to do this episode. But before I do so, this is a reminder that tomorrow, February 8th, 2024, is the last day that you can join my signature group coaching program, Food Freedom Academy. So if you're a woman who has been struggling with food and body image for over 2 years, you have tried counting calories and intermittent fasting and Weight Watchers and Noom and fasting and juice cleanses, and you feel like you're constantly on this hamster wheel trying to control your food and portion control, but you're struggling with thinking about food 24/7. You wake up and you're already thinking about what you ate yesterday, what you're going to eat for breakfast. When you're eating your meal, you're already thinking about your next meal. When you're with people that you love, you're only kind of like half present because your mind is mentally tallying how many calories you ate, or you're thinking about what's at the sweets table in the corner. If you feel guilt and shame when you eat quote unquote bad foods, and you want to be able to eat all foods, eat the foods that you love, like the cookies and the cake, without feeling guilty and ashamed of your food choices, without losing control. So if you feel like the second that you start eating, you can't stop yourself. You have this all or nothing mentality with food, so that once you start eating something you shouldn't, then it's like all bets go out the window and you eat everything in sight. And you know that this is not healthy. This is not a way to live. You don't want to still be 80 years old, letting the size of your body dictate the size of your life, dictate the things that you do, the goals that you go after, how you show up in the world. If you want to have a healthy relationship with food so that you can actually make healthy choices, but that come from a place of self-love, not from punishment, not from restriction. I remember when I was struggling with disordered eating and with a very unhealthy relationship with food, I used to look at my mom, who is an intuitive eater, and she would have a piece of chocolate, and she still has a piece of chocolate at lunch as her dessert every day. And I used to look at her and think, wow, she can just have one piece of chocolate and not need to go back for more. And she doesn't seem to really overthink it. Like, she really doesn't care. It's just something sweet to finish her lunch. And I used to be so envious of that. I used to be envious of women, my friends, who could go out to dinner and order the thing that they just wanted on the menu and not order the thing that had the lowest calories and not obsess over it the entire time. Being able to just stop eating when they were full and bring the rest home as leftovers. And I remember looking at the people around me who had this quote unquote normal, like effortless, natural, intuitive relationship with food and thinking, I would give anything to be like that. I would give anything to not struggle with food, because your relationship with food is the most important relationship in your life. We eat food every day, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. Like that is your entire day that you have this in your life. No matter how much you wish that you could avoid it or not have it in your life, you need it to survive. And so if you're going to spend the rest of your life around food, and there's only so much control that you can have in terms of at one point in your life, you're going to be around the cake. You're going to be around the cookies and the sweets and the chips, because a full life means traveling. It means going to the weddings and going to the birthday parties and really enjoying all of aspects of life, which is food being one of them. And so if you're going to be around these foods, doesn't it make sense to know how to have a healthy relationship with them? Same thing when it comes to emotional eating. This is something big that we focus on inside the academy, because what I often see is women struggling with disordered eating and their relationship with food is that they don't know how to feel strong negative emotions. So they distract, you numb, you run away from, you push down by turning to food instead. And a big reason why you might be going back to dieting and food obsession is because it's a distraction, right? If you're thinking about food, calories, portions, diets, what you should or shouldn't eat all day long, then you're not thinking about the things that are actually going on for you. It acts as a crutch. But the thing is that I always say life is 50-50. 50% positive, but 50% negative as well. That's part of being alive. If you look at the heart monitor, it goes up and down, up and down. What happens when you're in the middle? You're dead. And when you're struggling with your relationship with food, it kind of feels like you're numb. Like you're not really there. You're kind of just going through the motions. You're on autopilot. And that's what death is, right? You're not really living all of the beautiful aspects of your life. And so if you're going to have negative emotions in your life for the rest of your life, because you're human, don't you think that learning how to navigate those strong emotions, developing the skills to handle negative emotions in a healthy way, don't you think that that is not only important, but it's necessary to be able to live a long, healthy, and happy life? Unfortunately, what diet culture does not tell you is that it's not a matter of just knowing what to eat, what not to eat, having more nutrition knowledge. It's a matter of developing the right skills, the skills of learning to listen to your body, because you probably know that is foundational to having healthy habits, is being able to listen to your body and honor its needs. So if you don't know how to do that, then you're constantly going to feel like eating is a frustrating, confusing, overwhelming experience, and you're never going to trust yourself. The skill of emotional regulation, of being able to soothe your nervous system when it gets activated, instead of turning to food so that you can just numb it, distract from it. Because you know that those emotions always come back, right? When you're feeling stressed or anxious, those emotions always come back, and they come back with a vengeance. The skills of being able to make a balanced meal and incorporate your knowledge, which is called practical hunger, in order to know, all right, I'm going to be leaving the house in a little bit, and I know that I just eaten this much, and this normally lasts me this long, 3 or 4 hours, so I should pack a snack or I should pack a meal. These are all skills that you need to develop. but you also need to change as a person. And that's really what this episode is about, because there's something that I teach inside the academy, which is called the neurological levels of change. And most people, what they do is they try to change their behaviors. I'm going to eat less. I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to keep healthy foods in the house. I'm going to exercise more. But that's only one of the lower levels of change, right? Because in order to change your behaviors, there's some deeper things that need to be changed if you want it to be lasting, if you want to have true health promoting behaviors. And I'm not going to go through all of the things that need to be changed, skills being one of them, your thoughts and beliefs being one of them. And at the top is your identity, who you are, how you show up in the world. And most of you listening right now, you know that you need to heal your relationship with food. That's why you're listening to this podcast. You know that this is something that is not only crucial and important, but it's something that is almost urgent because it does not heal over time. Like time does not heal this wound. Action is. And a big reason why you're not taking the actions necessary, and you might be consuming a lot of content and listening to podcasts and having a social media that's filled with like really empowering messaging around healing your relationship with food, but you're not doing the uncomfortable things that are required, like shedding the person that you used to be, the negative person, the one who stays in fear, the one who just tries the same thing over and over and over again, the one who's in her comfort zone. That requires a lot more out of you. And the reason why you haven't taken those actions is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of getting uncomfortable, fear of doing something that you've never done before. I'm going to play with you a reel that I saw on Instagram, and it's a perfect representation of why so many people will stay in their comfort zone even though it is so uncomfortable. Let me play that for you.
Your nervous system will always choose a familiar hell rather than an unfamiliar heaven. Your nervous system is connected to the trauma that you've been through, and it stores that trauma. And its number one job is to protect you and keep you safe. Here's the thing, is that your nervous system will protect you by keeping you comfortable. Comfort is the familiar hell. Uncomfort and pressing through the unknown, even though it's very scary, is the unfamiliar heaven. So get uncomfortable. Do the thing that is scaring you. Take the step, jump, whatever that might be, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up in a way better place.
So I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. And now I want to walk you through that fear. I want to give you actionable mindset shifts, ask you really powerful questions so that you can take that leap, take that jump. I cannot tell you how many decisions I've made in the past 5 years that have made me so terrified, have made me want to throw up, has made my nervous system freak out. And I've done it anyways. And it is in those moments of fear that I've experienced the most growth. And so because I am no stranger to fear, I think I'm a pretty good expert at walking you through it, because I have seen it for myself that when I push through fear, my life expands. My life quite literally changes pretty quickly. But I've also seen it in my clients, in the women I work with. And so the reason why I wanted to do this episode is really because the thing that's stopping you from changing your life and changing your relationship with food and your body and with yourself, right? Because this is really, it goes far beyond just food and body image. It goes towards how you feel about yourself, how you show up in the world. What's stopping you is fear. And so I want to coach you through it. And the best way I know how is to coach someone through it. So I sent out an email to my email list, and I asked, who here knows that intuitive eating and a healthy relationship with food is what you need but you're not taking action because you're terrified. And I got a flood of responses. And so I brought one of those women on for today. So I'm going to play that recording of me coaching Jackie through that fear. And I want you to hear yourself in her. And I want you to ask yourself the same questions that I ask her. All right. So this was a longer intro than I expected, but it was necessary. So I'm going to play that recording for you. Enjoy. So what we'll do is we'll get started so that I can know a little bit more about your background, your relationship with food, what it looks like. So can you tell me more about what your biggest struggles are when it comes to food in your body and how long you've been struggling with this for?
I feel like I have imposter syndrome because I'm a teacher. And so I teach junior high, and a lot of those girls in particular have body image issues. And so I say the right thing, but I'm not practicing it. So I think my relationship with food, I feel like a liar because I'm saying one thing to other people, but then how I speak to myself with my food relationship is very different. I would say I'm not restrictive in that, like, I refuse to eat things. I just am very, like, punitive afterwards. There's a lot of negative self-talk after if I feel like I ate too much, or if I feel like I didn't need to eat that, or I didn't actually want it, I ate it for like whatever other reason. And I think this all stems back to like my teenage years. I was a competitive taekwondo athlete, and so I was in a weight category, and I was in a very restrictive diet then. Like I can remember not eating for like days at a time just to meet my weight category. And then it was like, if I ever ate any food, it was like I had to work it off. So I think I just, like, in my formative years, created such a bad association between like what food I eat and how I should feel about it thereafter. But yeah, it's been like it feels like my whole life, but for sure since I was like 15.
Yeah.
And I'm in my late 30s. So like a long enough time.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that story because I was also a competitive athlete growing up that was very body image focused. And like you said, it's those formative years. I work with a lot of women who were either put on Weight Watchers at an early age, or they develop these body image issues in their teenage years. And then that gets like placed into your subconscious, and your relationship with food and with your body gets like buried deep inside. And what you mentioned is like, I feel like an imposter because I know what it means to have a healthy relationship with food, and I'm able to tell other people that, but I'm not able to do it for myself. And that's usually because it is hidden in our subconscious brain. And so I talk about the difference between knowing and knowledge. Knowledge is, I know what I know, right? I know that I should be doing this. Whereas knowing is you're actually embodying it, and you're embodying these new concepts. And so you mentioned that this started around 15 years old and you're now in your late 30s. So can you tell me what those past 15 to 20 years have looked like for you in your relationship with food?
Well, I mean, I've tried a lot of different, I hate the term diet because like I don't like it, but I've tried a bunch of different like food strategies. I've hired like coaches, and I'm such a people pleaser that I'll do it when they're watching me. But as soon as I'm left to my own devices, I sort of self-sabotage. And I always go back to blaming, oh, I was on a restrictive diet for so long that now I just can't do it anymore. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter, because I'm still really mean to myself when I make a choice that I feel like I didn't need to make. So, and I've got little kids now, and it's so interesting watching them because, you know, they'll have like a fruit roll up and they'll eat a third of it and I go, I'm done. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, I want to be able to do that. Just have like a bite and say like, good enough. I'm satiated. So I often try and think of like, when did I lose that capacity to listen to my own body? And I don't know when I lost it, but I know I don't trust what my body wants because my brain just overrides with these negative thought patterns. So I don't know, like I want to enjoy food, but I often just have like this really negative narrative behind it while I'm eating it. Even if it tastes so good, I'm like, oh, I'm going to want to eat more of this because it tastes so good. And it's like, well, should I eat more of this? Like, are you going to be okay with that later? So I never really enjoy food, even though food's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of like this angel and devil on your shoulder. I want to be
Yeah.
able to enjoy food. I want to eat this food, but then there's this restrictive, kind of this like food enemy voice in your mind that is creating all of this chatter around what you should or shouldn't eat, the good and the bad food. And it probably feels like you live in your head constantly.
Yeah. Or I just eat like so fast, so I can't think about it. And then I'm mad at myself later. So I'm like, well, I don't even remember what it tastes like, or I feel like I ate too much of it, or I don't know if I'm still hungry because I ate so fast. So it's just like, it's a bizarre sort of thing I got going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very common. And it's something that I struggled with for years. And there's so much shame and isolation that gets wrapped up into it because you think this is just food. I should be able to figure this out.
Yeah.
And at what point did you, because you mentioned you've tried different diets, you've done different coaches, and a lot of the times that's what I hear is people go towards the how can I control food more? And that just takes us further away from what we actually want, which is this healthy relationship with food. So was there a point where you realized, oh, my relationship with food is unhealthy, and this is the thing that I need to work on? Not the more diets, not more restrictive plans, but the mindset behind it.
Honestly, I think I've been aware of that for probably like a decade, but it just seems so much easier to like focus on the food intake and not the relationship with food, that you kind of just like, ignorance is bliss. I've known I don't have a great relationship with food or a great relationship with my body in terms of how I view it for a long time. But I just, not that I'm lazy, just not, it feels scary to attack that relationship because I don't know where to begin. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I don't know. I think it's just sometimes easier to be mean to yourself than it is to be accepting, you know?
And that's exactly what I'm here to help you do, because you are not the first person to ever have that sense of awareness of my relationship with food is not where I want it to be, but it is so much easier to just do what I know, to do diets and not try a different approach where I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the first step is. And then we get stuck in this like, well, I don't know, therefore I'm not going to. Right.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at, and I'm taking some notes, you mentioned one is I don't know where to begin. Two is I don't know what that's going to look like. What are some of the other fears that you have around healing your relationship with food?
That's a great question. I think a part of it is it's almost scary feeling okay with myself in a sense. I'm just like, I'm so used to having like a bit of a negative dialogue inside that if it was like, well, if I can't pick on myself for that, like, then what? Which seems like really mean when you say it out loud, but like, I know I'm a good mom and I know I'm a great teacher and I know that I'm a good friend. And so it's just like, is it okay to be fully okay with myself? Like in all facets? I think that's probably like a big one is, aren't I supposed to not like something about myself? Which seems crazy when you say it out loud, but yeah, I would say it's just like, I think that might be it in a sense. Like, I don't know how to be my own cheerleader in all areas of my life, I guess.
Wow. What is that like to uncover that?
It's like almost shocking. I don't know, like it's like a physical response where I feel like really jittery in my whole body when I'm like, is that been it this whole time? I'm just being mean to myself because I can, which is like crazy because I say to my students, my own kids, like it's so easy to be mean. And I'm like really being mean to myself and not putting that together. Is it that easy? Oh, I don't know. It's a weird feeling to be like, is that it?
I'm going to tell you a little something. A couple of years back, I was super negative. Like complaining was part of my personality. And I even said that out loud. And I grew up in an environment where I love you was not really said in my family. And I was so used to keeping people at arm's length. And I had a closed heart and I was really mean to myself. And when I had disordered eating and then eventually it turned into an eating disorder, that just amplified. And what tends to happen is it starts to become part of your identity. It is part of your identity to be your own bully. And it feels uncomfortable, even if it's for the best, it feels uncomfortable to lose that part of you because your ego likes what is familiar. It likes what you're used to. And so for you, when so much, and this tends to happen a lot, so you're not the only one, but when so much of your mental space is used to being consumed by thoughts about food and about your body and negative thoughts about yourself, when you think about clearing that mental space to focus on things that actually matter to you, whether that is your hobbies, maybe you don't know what your hobbies are like, or your friends or your family, or really working on becoming the best version of you, what are you present to? What comes up for you? What feelings come up for you?
When you're like, think of the mental space, I was like, oh my God, I'd be unstoppable. Because like I have two daughters and I'm very mindful in front of them to be like, look how strong my body is. But inside I'm like, you're a liar. Like, and I think of all the things I don't like. And so when I'm like, man, what if I just like authentically could be myself and that be just it? Like there's not this underlying current of trying to pull me down. It's exciting. It's like, I don't want to say terrifying because that's too big of a word, but it is almost a little bit intimidating to go like, wait, I can live that way, you know? So it's an exciting thought, but then there's of course that like negative knitter that goes like, could you though? Could you really let this go? Are you sure you want to? You've done it for so long and you're so good at it. Like you're so good at it. And you'll be bad at this new stuff. So like, stay here. It's okay. It's okay to not like yourself and your body in that way. So it's weird. Very much those two dynamics opposing each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the times we're almost afraid of the power that we might have because, man, imagine if you actually had that mental space to be the full authentic version of you. And I want to do an exercise with you because this is going to help you kind of clear up some of that like conflicting noise that's going on in your mind. So I want you to close your eyes for me. And I want you to take just like a deep breath and ground yourself in your body. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath going in and out of your body. And I want you to imagine yourself maybe 20 years from now, 30 years from now, like 50, 60, 70 years old, when you have now had the bulk of your life pass by. If you don't have that much time left, right? You can't go back in time. You can't make new decisions that would change the path of your life. Like right now is when you still have that choice and that power. And you're on your last leg of your life and you look back on the life that you are currently living. And imagine that you've continued this for another 30 years. And that is how you decided to spend your life on earth, being your worst bully, always finding something that's wrong about you, focusing so much of your time and energy on food, jumping from one diet to another, and doing all of this just because that what was comfortable, what was quote unquote easy. How does that make you feel? What comes up for you?
Like really sad, you know, just to like have that defeatist attitude your whole existence. It seems like, I don't say a waste, but it just seems like that it's just a real shame. You know, as soon as you're like, imagine 30 years from now, I thought we are gonna go like happy, like you love your body and everything's good. And I was like, yeah, and you're like, and you're like stuck here. I was like, oh damn. Like I don't want to be in this mindset. And I just, as soon as we like dangle that carrot of like feeling really empowered and almost impervious in terms of like your own capacity, I was like, let's go there. Let's stay on that path. I don't want to be here. I don't like being here now. I would hate to be here in 30 years from now. You know, I like my mom always makes negative comments about her body. And I'm always like, stop doing that. And then I do it in my own head and go, well, it's okay, I do it. But I just was like, I don't want to do that my whole life. Don't make me do that my whole life. So it's really sad. And it feels like I'd be very lonely because I would never be truly authentically happy. And that just seems like a real shame to live my whole life, never really genuinely loving who I am. That just seems like a real disappointment, you know?
Absolutely. And the reason why I made you go through that exercise is not to make you sad. It's because so many times people will think in terms of a very short-term timeline, right? I'm just going to do this now because it's easy. It's comfortable. Yeah. And if you look at the most successful people in the world, whether it's the people who have helped the most people, who've created an empire, the most successful people in the world, the thing that differentiates them is the timeline in which they speak. They don't talk about days. They don't talk about weeks. They don't talk about months from now. They don't barely talk about years from now. They talk about decades. Because if you can start looking at what would the future version of me want, not me a month from now or a year from now, or me right now where I'm comfortable and things are easy. Because if you keep doing things that are easy for you and comfortable, you will keep getting the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Because on the other side of discomfort is growth. Yeah. And we get very comfortable in our comfort zone, even if that comfort zone sucks.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And how many times have you ever actually stopped and thought, what will my life look like 30 years from now if I keep living this way?
Never. I keep going like, oh, if I eat healthy for 3 months, I could lose like 10 pounds and then maybe I'd be happy. That's the mindset. And I think of like my body in that capacity, which is interesting because I have like career goals that are 5-10 years down the line. I have hopes for my family 10-20 years down the line. But when I think of myself just from that perspective, no, it's very short term and it's very loosey goosey goal driven, going like, well, that would be great, but it will never happen for you, kind of, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I've never thought about what this would look like even probably 6 months from now, let alone 10 years from now.
There's a reason for that. Diet culture doesn't want you to think down the line. Yeah, it wants you to think of the 30-day challenge or the 3 months and 30 pounds in 3 months. Because if you can get stuck in thinking of the short term, then when you move past that, well, and the weight comes back and you fall right back into your old patterns, then what's the next short-term thing that I can try? Yeah. And you don't actually question, okay, is this something that is sustainable? Is this something that I can see myself? Let's say we're doing low carb or we're counting calories obsessively or we're doing Noom. Do I want to be 70 years old going out to ice cream with my granddaughter, but not being able to eat it with her because it's a red food?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't want that.
And then I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going to ask you another question, and this one is going to be hard as well, but this is important because if you don't ask yourself these hard questions, you get stuck. and I want to get you unstuck. What
Okay.
is it going to cost you financially, health-wise, family-wise, your kids, your relationships, your mental health, your physical health? What will it cost you if you keep doing this for another 30 years?
I think in some sense you could say it would cost me everything because it would all be so related in the domino effect, you know? Because I know, like, even with my husband, that the times where I don't feel really good about my body, we're not as intimate. So like that's hard on our relationship. And then my self-esteem is like so reliant on how I view my body that I start to, that doubt trickles in and percolates every other area of my life. You know, I start to doubt, am I a good mom? Like those have no relationship, but somehow they must. Am I a good teacher? Again, rational thoughts, those aren't related. Why would we even compare those two thoughts? But that's the hard part, right? Is irrational thoughts, well, irrational are so pervasive when you let them. But I just think like, I feel like a liar at school when I talk to kids about body image. And I just think like, I hate that feeling. And I think that's probably why I took that jump of reaching out, going like, yeah, maybe she'll pick me. Because I think I'm just tired of being like two-faced, saying one thing but living differently. I would like to live the way I suggest because that seems to be genuine. But then also I'm practicing what I preach, and then that makes me feel like I'm living more of who I want to be. So every day that I choose to do this version, I'm not being who I want to be, and that sucks, you know? And I just think I would be a happier version of myself if I genuinely was nice to myself all the time, not just when I feel like I can be because maybe I made better food choices, you know?
There's a lot of studies that have been done on what makes a person happy. Believe it or not, eating only healthy foods and looking a certain way does not fall in that category.
I know. I feel like I knew that, but it's so easy to justify to yourself that maybe you're like one of the outliers, you know?
Ask yourself this. Every time that you've lost weight, every time that you've gone on a diet, every time that you've repeated the same cycle, and now where you're at now, do you feel better about yourself? Do you feel happier? Do you feel like you finally have done it?
No. I feel like if I had finally done it, I wouldn't have to keep doing it. And so you're like, well, that wasn't it. Maybe this is it. But even then, when you're doing it, I feel like we all in our back of mind go like, this ain't it. Like we all know better, you know? Like for me to pay someone $200 a month to monitor what I'm eating and for them to be like, hey, good job. Like, yeah, at the time, I felt like I had more energy, but I was also being told to go to bed way earlier. Like I was just doing what I was told and I wasn't making any choices for myself in terms of autonomy. I had none and I looked physically different, but I think in my head it was still like, well, I don't think I was happier. I just weighed less on the scale, but I wasn't like, yeah, this is it. I'm here. It was like, well, I could always lose more, which sucks. That sucks, you know?
You can't diet your way out of hating yourself.
Well, that's a good line. Yeah, that's very true.
And what people try to do is, I'm going to change my body. And then once I change my body, my mind is going to go with it. I'm going to feel better.
Yes. I've said that to myself a bajillion times, I'm sure.
And the thing about body image and self-esteem, it lives in your mind, not in your body. And so think about it this way. Every day that you're approaching a diet or trying to lose weight, you're coming from a place of, I hate myself right now. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. So yeah, you might lose 1 pound, but the intention behind the weight loss is the same. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. And so if I lose weight, then I will feel different. And then you lose 1 pound and you lose 2 pounds. You lose 3 pounds. You feel the same way about you. People might give you compliments and they feel good for 2 seconds. And then you go home and you're like, it's still not enough. Or you think I'm doing the right thing. People are noticing. People are loving me, but you still don't feel that within yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's never enough. You get to the goal weight you step on the scale and you're like, okay, well, I'm hating myself every step of the way. And now I'm at my goal weight. And now what? I still don't like the way that I am. I don't like who I am. I don't like myself. So then what do I do? And imagine you find yourself on your deathbed. And this breaks my heart, but I've spoken to a lot of women who said, my mom was a chronic dieter and she was on her deathbed and was still worried about how she looked.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine you spend your entire life living for other people instead of working on yourself so that you love yourself, not linking your worth to how your body looks, because who you are, why people love you. I'm going to tell you this now. People don't love you because of the way that your body looks.
Yeah.
In fact, when you spend your entire life so hyper-focused on food in your body, it takes away from who you truly are.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And it would make some of your relationships inauthentic too, right? Because I think when people say like, oh, you look nice, even in the back of your mind, you're like, do I actually, or are you just saying that because you're my friend, or you're trying to be nice, or like, yeah, rather than going like, no, I do look good. Thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready to change. I just don't know what that's going to look like. And I think that's what's scary is I don't know what to do next. Which is so funny because you're like, you hit your goal weight, then what? It's that same feeling of like, well, now what? I know I don't want to be like this. I know that there's other options available to me, but like, what do I do?
So that's going to be the next thing that we get to, because we addressed the biggest fear that was keeping you stuck, which is it feels scary to actually be okay. It feels scary to not have this, worried all the time. And that's perfectly normal. And I think that I took you through some exercises to help you realize that, yeah, it can be scary. But when you choose to do things, even in the face of fear, man, you become a whole new person. I cannot tell you how many scary decisions I've had to do in my life, things that have made me want to throw up, things that have given me a stomach ache. And when you do them, when you come out on the other side better, the future version of you will look back and say, I'm so proud of you for feeling that discomfort and doing it anyways so that you can set yourself up for a better future.
Yeah.
So then the next fear is, I don't know where to begin. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I know there's other options out there. So a question that I have for you is, you know that it is possible to heal your relationship with food and your body, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You know that there are people out there who are teaching you how to do this, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that with the right structure, systems, accountability, support, community, are you someone who follows instructions well? Are you coachable?
Yeah. I would say I'm such a people pleaser that I always like want to do like the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want like my coach, like, you did that the best. You're number one. Which is funny because it doesn't really matter if I'm the best or if I'm like mediocre. If I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for myself. I shouldn't be looking for that external validation. But I would say I'm coachable because I like self-growth and I've done a lot of explorations in other areas of my life to get better. It's just this one piece that I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. Everybody hates themselves, which I don't want to believe is true. And I would like to be a role model to be like, it's okay to not hate yourself. It's cool to be you and just like, this is it. And I'm me in so many other ways, except here. This one little pillar that kind of holds up the foundation of everything else, you know?
And that's the thing, is that the relationship that you have with food and your body is the most important relationship in your life because it touches every aspect of your life. You cannot escape it. And so saying, oh, it's just what it is. Everyone hates themselves, right? You get to choose if that's true or not, right? And you get to keep living on autopilot and deciding to do what everyone else is doing, because diet culture is telling women, spend your entire life trying to shrink yourself so that you can't actually focus on what your real purpose is in life.
Yeah.
And if you know that you're coachable, if you know that you can take instructions, and you know that there are people out there who are teaching you how to do this, then it doesn't actually matter the fear of, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know where to begin. All you need to know is that you want this bad enough and that this is important to you.
Yeah. Fair point.
And the last question that I'll have for you is, and I recommend that you actually sit down and journal on this, is why is this important to you?
I think I'm just tired of living this version of my life, you know? And I want to be a really great role model for my own kids. And I want to be a really great role model for all the students that I teach. And I just feel like if I can get this right, the ripple effect of potential change is so big. And not just my own personal little world, but like the communities in which I share space with. I'm like, I'm tired of being, you know, like, I'm just like, I'm over it. I've done it for so long. It's not working. And it's literally definition of insanity at this point to think I'm going to yield a different outcome doing the exact same thing. So yeah, I think I'm just like, I'm almost 40. Get it together, Jackie. Like, let's just go all in and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's important to me, is I'm just like, I've done it this way and it's not working. And I can't keep tricking myself to believe that like I can figure it out by doing the same thing with like a different color of it on, you know? Like, yeah, you gave me lots of light bulb moments. So thank you for that. Lots to sit and think with now.
All right. So I hope that you got a lot of value from that coaching session. And I leave you with one last question, which is, am I going to be the kind of person who lets fear drive my life, hold me in my comfort zone, hold me back from doing the things that could quite literally transform my life? Or am I going to be the kind of person who feels the fear and does it anyways? I have to say, I have a lot of things that I'm proud of in my life. I would say that the thing I'm the most proud of is how many decisions I've made in the face of fear. Because the most successful people, and you could think of success with whatever definition you want, I see success as people who have been the creators of their life, which means not being a victim, not being powerless, not saying I'm not capable, this is not possible for me, and just taking the easy way out. I see success as people who take their life in their own hands, who take the actions necessary to create different results, who know where they want to go, and who are relentless in doing whatever it takes to get there. And as a result, end up feeling that happiness, that peace, that sense of fulfillment that everyone really is chasing. Because unfortunately, what diet culture doesn't tell you is that those feelings that you're chasing won't be found in a certain body. How many times have you achieved a thinner body and still not felt like it was enough, and still felt like, I don't necessarily love myself. I'm not where I thought I would be. I don't feel the way I thought I would be. Or felt like, now, in order to maintain this, I'm going to have to keep kind of putting my life on hold for the rest of my life. That happiness, that peace, that joy, that sense of fulfillment that you're craving comes from the person that you become when you get clarity on the life you want to live, the experiences you want to have, the values you want to live by. And then you are relentless in taking the actions to get there, especially when it's uncomfortable. I'm not going to say even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. It should be uncomfortable. It should stretch you. It should be something you don't want to do. I mean, I invested in a $15,000 program about a month ago, and giving my credit card was not fun. And then the second I did it, I felt this rush of energy go through me, this sense of power, this sense of pride. Like, wow, I've just made a decision that said, I am worth this. And that is a feeling that is very hard to describe. So are you going to be the kind of person who lets fear hold you from living the life that you deserve? Because remember, you've got one life on this earth. You get to decide how you want to spend it. You get to choose if you're going to look back on it with regret or with pride. Or are you going to be the type of person who makes decisions in the face of fear, in the face of discomfort? That's a decision you get to make. All right. I'm so happy that you listened all the way through to this episode. Like I said, tomorrow is the last day to join Food Freedom Academy. I hope that I get to see you inside. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magna Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.